All right, hello. Present moment. Okay, hello, welcome. Let's see, so I don't have anything in particular today. No questions, no subjects on the mind. So I'm just going to be present and see what wants to arise. A moment ago, I was organizing my schedule and my to-do lists. And, it's funny how, on one end, we have to be somewhat productive, efficient, effective, getting things done in the world of form. Um, Much of my life has been working hard in different jobs, some very physically demanding, some more mentally demanding. But, we live in this world of form, and so, except for the few that I guess are fortunate, they are born into a very wealthy family, they don't have to work, or their partners work, and they don't have to do anything. I guess that's a small possibility, but for most of us, that's not usually the case. We have to make a living, to pay the bills, to live comfortably. And, well, even if you have all your bills paid for, there's still busyness. There's still things to do. And so I guess in that sense, it's still a universal thing. But the tricky aspect, in The Power of Now, Eckhart talks about the difference between psychological time and clock time. And when he's saying the power of now, be in the present moment, get out of the illusions of past and future, be here now, he's referencing really psychological time. Psychological time, is where it's our mind, really. And it's our mind going into the future, the long distance future or the short future, or even the future for me of like, what am I going to say next? That's future. And then past, all the things that all our memory, all the things that's happened to us in our past. Again, all the way back to as far as we can remember, and up close to like just a second ago. Each second that passes by becomes the past. so, uh, but this future and past in the conceptual world of the mind is where time, psychological time, happens, and a lot of suffering happens. Unnecessary suffering happens because we as humans get preoccupied and are pretty much living in past and future, and rarely ever just present. Now, the beauty, though, of becoming present is it doesn't mean we no longer think about time at all. Honestly, that'd be kind of nice if I didn't have to think about time at all. I wouldn't be surprised if things flowed pretty nicely through a lot of things. But there are other aspects, like showing up for this session tonight, where time is clock time, as Eckhart calls it, is important. And to be, to go to appointments, to have doctor appointments, to pick up groceries, all these things. This is the value of time, our conceptual timing of past and future, being able to plan out into the future, and also being able to reminisce and go into past and learn from the past, or even enjoy positive memories. This is what you might call conscious use of mind, because the mind is a powerful tool if we use it as a tool. But if we're not careful, and as billions of humans are still experiencing right now, they are not using the mind as a tool. The mind is using them constantly. And so if you can't come into present moment and live here in present moment with occasional visits into time, past and future, for practical things, then it means the mind has a lot of strength and power over us. And awakening, in one way, is awakening out of that. This overconsumption of past and future and living now. That's why so many of my talks, it's about present moment. Let's take a moment to be still, be here now. It's almost become cliche, but it's really vital. So, having said all of that, actually there's a lot we could go into on this subject. Well, just at the beginning I was mentioning was that ironically it's for the Eckhart Tolle work that I do in the community, and I've been helping with some of the video stuff and library and things. More projects are being given to me, and it's just ironic because I'm balancing a lot of busy doing kind of stuff and scheduling a lot of stuff that's very time sensitive, but it's for teachings that are timeless. That's the funny paradox. The teachings that we're helping move around and label and share to others, they're timeless, eternal. But the ones doing all the busy stuff requires a lot of organizing, being and scheduling and being on time for things. So mind. And we have these teachings that are helping free us from mind, but then also having to use the mind to help share the teachings. So it's an interesting paradox there. But actually, it's just a good example, too, that we can use the mind carefully and use it when it's needed, and then put it down. Actually, it's a lot like the cell phone. I probably mentioned before, but a few months ago, I deleted the social medias from my phone app, or my phone. I deleted all the apps. That way, I could only access them on the desktop. And since then, I have been on my phone much less. There's nothing else to entertain me on it. So now I'm basically only using the phone as a tool, for researching stuff, for scheduling, it's still a very valuable tool, for shopping, for schedule. I mentioned schedule, timer. I use a timer a lot for cooking and things. It's a beautiful tool, fascinating and very important in my daily life. I could survive without it, but it's very helpful to have. And so I'm using it as a tool, and this is how ideally we want to go with the mind. If we keep with the metaphor, you might even ask, what are the mental social media apps that in your head that you keep getting lost in? Certain subjects, certain threads, where your consciousness goes into all that mind stuff and loses track of time, and it's just chewing on all the drama and the problems and all that jazz. Scrolling. It's almost like when we're in our mind, we're mentally scrolling through all these thoughts. And so when you can become aware of all the unnecessary apps you have opened in your mind, and only use the mind as a tool, then it's powerful. It's a great tool. Just like with organizing my time with my tasks, and there's a lot of them are time sensitive. Now that I have it organized, it feels good, and I'm sure I'll be on top of it all, and it will go smoothly, and I won't forget things. So there'll be accuracy and care and effectiveness, but also no stress is the other nice thing, because it's all done in a way. I just have to now each day check the list, do the couple of things, and then move on to the next day. And so I'm not carrying it all in my head either. And now, with psychological time, one of the ways that we fall into suffering, well, there's many, even just around time, but let's say future anticipation. So it's when our attention is going into the mind and into stories and daydreams and thoughts about projecting ourselves into some future moment. And usually underneath that, there is this very tempting belief that this future moment we have in our head is better, much better than the present moment. And this is maybe more obvious if we're thinking about like a vacation or some extravagant event coming up. For me, it would be a concert coming up. There's excitement. Ooh, I can't wait to go see so-and-so, There's this sort of enjoyment into the future. That can be done in a light way, where it's not heavy, there's no actual suffering, but you're still looking forward to a future event. But in the unconscious aspect, what happens is we look for the future events as our little moments of happiness and our little moments of grace or salvation, our freedom. Oh, my day is terrible. Oh, my week. Oh, my work sucks. All those complaints we have inside, and then we have this little light at the end of the tunnel that we say, oh, but there's that coming up. I remember doing that back when I used to work before getting into these teachings. I would do that. I'd just be resisting all day while I was at work, but looking forward to a vacation I had coming up in a few weeks or something, as a light at the end of the tunnel. The tricky thing about that is we're giving up so many moments, precious moments of our day, that we could learn to enjoy and be in freedom from suffering and instead enjoy the presence of now, even at work or whatever. We don't realize we give that up because we trade it for this future moment. And the funny thing is about the future moment, eventually it does come, it happens for the most part, unless plans are canceled. But, you go to the beach happens, and maybe you enjoy the beach, and the next thing you know, it's over, and you got to go back to normal life. And so if you haven't found the freedom in normal life, then it's like normal life is perceived as a kind of constant default problem or unwanted place of being, which is very unfortunate because this is the majority of our life. It's just the everyday, simple stuff, not the retreats or the beaches or the concerts or all these, family, if you're excited to see some family or whatever, birthdays, gifts. And if you look really deeply, whenever you catch that pull of like, oh, future better than now, if you look at it really closely, though, it gets us to the essence of it is finding our state of satisfaction in being, in just being, which is a big part of awakening. Because when you awaken, the being awakens in you, because it's there, it's in everyone, but not everyone. It's not awakened in everyone. But the more it awakens, the more you find a deep enjoyment in just being still. Or in Zen, they call it shikantaza, just sitting. Because if you really enjoy just sitting, then you can pretty much enjoy all of life. Because all of life is kind of like just continual sitting in some ways. I mean, yeah, you stand up and you're moving, but internally there's sort of this quiet being that's still here, even if you're busy doing stuff. And that goes into another subject about integrating busyness and doing and with the peaceful sort of grace and stillness of being. Merging those two, not easy, but it is possible, and it is very effective and enjoyable when we experience it. And you might say it's part of our life purpose too. So yeah, and this is where we also need to question: do we enjoy just being? And be careful, if you're watching this, you already have a fair amount of spiritual study, in your past. You probably wouldn't be here if you haven't already explored a good bit. And that's great, but the tricky part there is you also know a lot of the right answers conceptually. The mind knows the right answers, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to enjoy being. Yeah, being is good. And the mind says that. But do you feel it? And is that your everyday experience? Do you actually enjoy just being? Sitting still? Being present? Or, and maybe you do to some degree, but the temptation to get pulled into the world of form is much stronger. And so we don't realize we trade this enjoyment of being for the dramas going on in our mind and little all kinds of stuff, really. We constantly are giving away this joy of being for all this busy mind stuff and doing. This is also where like seated meditation can be a nice practice to help ensure that we are really connected with just sitting, and then slowly integrating, inviting that stillness into the moving and busyness of everyday life. Um, so in a way to question this for yourself or kind of challenge yourself is just make some time to sit in silence for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And you can schedule it if it helps, if you have a busy schedule. And then you just sit and see what happens. Do you enjoy it? Do you get lost in lots of thinking? Is there any resistance arise at some point? Maybe some boredom or impatience or annoyance, or even old emotions from the past that suddenly appear. This would be good to do, to just really see how much do I really enjoy just being. And this is important as well, because if you do this 30-minute test, you thoroughly enjoy the whole 30 minutes, you wish you could keep going, okay, fine, then you can keep going. And in fact, that's where you then just invite that same energy and awareness and kind of peacefulness into each moment of the day. And then your practice is carrying it and protecting it, so to speak. Vice versa, though, you do this 30-minute test and you find you're not able to finish the 30 minutes before you give in to picking up the phone or who knows what. Okay, then that's what you just notice. But noticing that, there's something in me. I don't actually like just sitting, just being. I don't feel perfectly content being fully still for a while. And that's good to notice, because then you can bring awareness to the part of you that doesn't want to be still, or the part of you that's also running away from sufferings, because this can often happen. We as humans have gotten very good at running away from our sufferings, whether through distraction, through numbing of substances, through even just really letting ourselves run through the mind, or nowadays picking up the phone and scrolling for no reason, getting little dopamine hits. It's very easy nowadays to distract yourself. And when you are sitting still, it's sort of the exact opposite of any distraction. So you're present with whatever wants to bubble up, which might be some unresolved stuff. If that happens, though, that's a good thing, because now you can bring awareness to it and you can heal something a bit deeper. When I was first doing my seated meditation practices, there were times that I'd sit and I would just feel lovely bliss, samadhi kind of states, really lovely states, joy and all that good stuff. There were other times that I'd sit, though, and I'd feel the opposite. I'd feel impatience, irritation, annoyance. I don't want to sit here. I'm wasting time. I could be doing other stuff, and the mind gets kind of rumbles up. And so I had to sit with that too. And then there were times where I'd be sitting and all of a sudden I'd get kind of sideswiped by some really strong emotion from something in my past that I didn't even know was there, but suddenly it's here and I'm feeling it and it's heavy. And so those are what I call healing sessions. If something does bubble up because you're being still, that's a good thing. It means it's sort of like universe is like it's like sweating out the toxins, to when you go in a sauna, you sweat out the toxins. Kind of being really still is kind of like that, except it's your presence that's the heat. Your presence and non-distraction, not having any stimulus really to distract, is the environment of the sauna, the spiritual sauna, that just burns up anything that's toxic. But it's not instant. It takes time. You have to sit there for a little while and see what arises. A lot of times people have really profound spiritual experiences when they do really long, immersive meditations, like the Vipassana 10-day silent retreats, which is mostly just sitting for many hours a day. I haven't done one. I've actually wanted to do one for a very long time, but just life situation doesn't allow me 10 days off. So I surrender to that. But the point here is, for many people, when they do these type of retreats, for a number of days early on, it's very difficult. A lot of stuff comes up, painful stuff, and just busy mind and all this, wildness. But in that process of making ourselves sit with all the discomforts and the pains and the busy mind, the ego, and we just keep sitting with it all, it deepens the connection to presence, it awakens it, and there's a real valuable opportunity there for awakening. So it's something we can do for ourselves, just kind of really checking. Do I actually enjoy being still for a fair amount of time or not? And part of the reason why this is so important, because if it's true, you really do enjoy doing nothing and just being, and you can do it for a while and it's very comfortable. Well, now really it's just then a matter of inviting that into everyday life, because that is most of everyday life. Nothing particularly happening, nothing crazy happening. You just, it's quiet, it's simple, it's peaceful. So you just, in a way, you're then working on integrating that physical stillness into one day. And your life is made of one day at a time. So if you're able to experience this joy of being throughout one day, you pretty much mastered life, because now it's just doing it again the next day and the next day. And when you've gotten really good at it, it's kind of natural or easy. But you still have to work with the challenges that show up too. However, though, if you find you actually don't like being still for very long, you get restless after 15 minutes, well, there's a bigger flashing red light to say of why you're not able to find it in everyday life. If you're not able to find it even being quiet with oneself. And so it would be important, if that's the case, to then make more time to do consistent seated practice, to heal and get to a place where you do thoroughly enjoy being in silence and just being present. Once you have that, now you can then work on, after you have that, you can then work on integrating it into the rest of daily life. A friend sent me an Eckhart video today, and it was called A Bell for Stillness, I think was the name of the video. And it's a 15-minute video, and Eckhart says a few words at the beginning, and then he rings a bell, and he's silent for the rest of the 15 minutes, and then he rings the bell again, and the video ends. And it's really lovely. Part of being in the silence as well, this is not easy, but this is a very important part of it. And really enjoying being, or just sitting, it very much requires not being lost in thought. Because I could be sitting here and be perfectly quiet on the outside, maybe doing a Zen seated position, sitting up tall at a Zen monastery. I've got all the outward stuff right of looking like I'm meditating, but internally, my mind is just churning all over the place, running around, thinking about all kinds of stuff and dramas and so on. And then little moments where I'm like, oh yeah, back to breath. And then lost in the mind again for 5-10 minutes. That's not really fully enjoying being just being. Because thinking is actually a form of doing. So you'll find that you're able to catch and slow down the mind, the enjoyment of being increases, elevates. And then when the mind is subsided completely and there's cessation of thought, then the joy is very strong. And vice versa, integrating this into everyday life is in very many ways, you could say, it's just about not being in too much thought throughout the day. Using thought when it's necessary, but for the most part, keeping it in your pocket. It's like the phone. Keeping the mind quiet. Keep it in its folder or whatever. And of course, it's a lot easier said than done. But that's one way that's one way to describe enlightenment in a practical sense. And it's a lot of my experience. It's just think when I need to, quiet when I don't. And it's amazing how much peace rather than suffering there is now. But just like with the phone, if you delete all your social media apps to stop being on your phone, but you haven't found the joy of being, then you're just going to be bored not being on your phone, and you're going to go find something else to keep you distracted and busy, which I've seen happen in myself over the years too. There are times where I don't fully connect to the enjoyment of being, and then I get lost in some other distraction. I play video games a little too much or something. And also keep in mind, social media, video games, whatever, all these distractions, potential distractions, they're not all bad. It's just, it's part of the world of form, and we can learn to enjoy a balance in the world of form. But some of these forms are very strong gravitational pulls, addictive, in which case, too much, which is not balance. And then it ends up really strengthening the ego or our sufferings. And that's where anything we enjoy on the world of form, it's worth kind of stepping back and questioning, is this in balance or is this out of balance? But if you don't enjoy being quiet with yourself, then you're bound to just keep bouncing around different distractions. Recently, Eckhart's been talking a lot about the ego from the view of how, in a simple way, how we identify with the world of things, world of form. Which, the world of form, what is the world of form? It's all the material surrounding us. That's the first layer. Well, yeah, and I've talked about this in past videos, but why not talk again? So if you look around your room for a moment, wherever you are, or if you're outside or whatever, just take a moment, look around your space, just kind of gently noticing different objects, not focusing on them too closely, but just noticing objects. I see paper towels, and a mala, and a door, and a fan, just different objects, a plant over there. All these objects are forms, right? And then look at our own body, also a form. So all of this physical world is a form. This is the world of form. And when consciousness, which is who we really are and what we're awakening into, what is awakening in us, consciousness is formless. So when the formless energy mistakes itself for being a form, then you have ego. Now, granted, it's not likely, that consciousness thinks it's these glasses necessarily, but it's much more likely that the consciousness in me that's living through me thinks, oh, I am this body. This is me. I'm this body. Right? And like last week, that's when suddenly death becomes a big issue. It's like, oh, this body dies. So, uh-oh. If I'm only this body, then that's a problem. um, and now the other depth of form, though, right? The mental, emotional side, which is harder to see, but also actually of form. So this is all the thoughts, our ideas, our beliefs, even spiritual opinions, and so on, political opinions, all the words that make up our mind, all the words and the images, and then all the feelings too, the emotions and the feelings, the negative disturbances, the sufferings, the pain body. All of that is just like mechanisms of a more subtle layer of the world of form. And again, when consciousness mistakes itself for this, then there's ego again. A more subtle ego, but ego. And that's one of the big reasons, one of Eckhart's big teachings is that you are not your mind. You are not the mind. You're not all this thought. Even the fancy, beautiful thoughts that you have, it's still ultimately it's just thought. And in a way, it's all forms. Just forms. None of it is as profound as the formless essence that we all are. So, when our consciousness withdraws from the forms, it loosens the grip on finding ourselves in all of these forms, in our cars, in our clothes, in our looks, in our hair, and all the physical stuff. And then it also withdraws its identification away from all the mental stuff, my political opinions, my memories, my future ideas, big one, my mental concept of myself, this mental image I have of myself as so-and-so with I like this, that, and the other things we put on our dating profile. All this the mental image stuff, all this form. When it withdraws from that, what's left? The interesting thing is if someone experiences that withdrawal, it's experienced as a form of dying. Because all this familiar stuff that the consciousness is attached to suddenly leaves that connection, and it can be painful from one point of view. From the attachment to the form, it can be painful. But from I guess you could say, attachment to the formless, which is kind of a paradox, attachment and formless. But from the formless view, it's very freeing and peaceful and still. Early on in my years of kind of working on my awakening, I guess you could say, a lot of my focus was on noticing my reactivity and resistance, my sufferings, bringing awareness to all that stuff. And the awareness that notices all of that stuff is the formless. And what's being noticed, though, is a kind of the evidence of the fact that I must be in some bit of ego. I fell back into a little too much identification with so on, whatever it is. So right now, notice how you're feeling in this moment. And can you feel the part of you that's just witnessing? It's just, I almost want to say existing. It's kind of the wrong word because to exist means to stand out, which is form based. But at the same time, it feels like kind of the right word. Just existing. This part of us that's just existing. Just here. And then if you can let go of any thoughts about your past, about your future, then there's just your presence, your consciousness. The more we can align with this consciousness, the more you will enjoy just sitting, doing nothing. And it's also where like impatience can be healed, for example. Because if you're enjoying being, and it doesn't matter where you are, you can be, then you're enjoying it, you know, and you're at a, let's see, when was the last time I felt some impatience? I went to a car dealership to get a bunch of car work done. And there were these salesmen that wanted to offer to buy the car I was getting tuned up and then have me buy a new car. And it was a long day because I had to wait like 6 hours for the car. But the funny thing was, I didn't have any impatience about the car taking a while. I was surrendered to that, just doing work and being present at the dealership. When the guy was talking to me, I could feel the temptation of impatience there because it was just, you know, a bunch of jargon. And I already knew I wasn't interested in selling my car, but I would just play along and see what they had to offer. And, but, you know, I don't know why I'm going into this story, but it's happening. But then, interestingly, after all the details were exchanged, I don't know, an hour or two, I told him my final choice. And then the guy I was talking with went into his spiritual practice, as he's Christian, and he started talking a lot about Jesus and his connection to Jesus and so on. And it was really lovely just being present with him, listening to his things and agreeing where I felt agreement. I didn't feel the need to challenge his religious ideas or anything. I can't remember if he even asked me what my views were or not. But that actually happened for another hour or two. And listening with presence. I ended up actually giving him a hug. But I'm sure part of the reason I was able to enjoy that whole experience of waiting a while for the car, going through this spiel of, you know, selling the car and stuff, which on one level is the ego and it's this capitalism and all this silly illusion stuff. But, you know, there's also this guy who's a being who's doing his dance in the human world as a salesman. And he was good at it. And then we met a little bit deeper on the spiritual level. And it was just an all-around, it was a nice day. I just didn't, you know, it felt full. And had some free coffee, you know. And then that was that. I imagine when I was younger, though, I would have already been annoyed with waiting for the car to take a while. Then I would have been annoyed with this guy talking to me so much. And he probably wouldn't have even talked as much because I would have already given him that I don't care vibe. So, which is unfortunate though. I mean, it's kind of sad that we throw around these I don't care vibes. But yeah, so that's, you know, the beauty of like when you enjoy being, it just so happens life is full of moments of where you can only just be. Traffic lights, anywhere where you have to wait in an office or something, or you wake up and you're making coffee, you're waiting for the coffee to be done. All these little moments of waiting. Or going places from home to work or whatever. All these little moments where when we really enjoy being, it's sort of like the golden ticket. You just enjoy everything wherever you go. You get to enjoy it because you enjoy being. Well, it reminds me, I have a license plate holder on my car that says, "I'd rather just be here now," from Ram Dass. Because there are bumper stickers that say, "I'd rather be golfing," or "I'd rather be swimming," or whatever their hobby is. Because the saying is, I'd rather be doing that than driving in the car right now. But this license plate holder says, "No, I'd rather be here now rather than anything else. I'll just be here now." Or what I shorten it to, I'd rather just be. And I can bring being into golfing or swimming or all those activities, but I can also enjoy driving to them and from them and being at home. And actually, I have one of the things I need to schedule soon is a cleaning day. Our house is getting dirty. Time, dust just adds up and things get dirty so quickly, and you have to clean things so often. Unless you're able to afford a maid or something, which, okay, that's cool. Then the maid has to be the one to be present while cleaning. But either way, just enjoying this just sitting is such a constant gift, because so much of our life really is opportunities for just that. And there's a satisfaction, and this is probably part of where like complaining stops, because when we're really in being, Eckhart calls it the ultimate state of satisfaction. We're fully satisfied because we've finally aligned with who we really are. Whereas when we're not aligned with who we really are, we're like these insatiable creatures that just need. People, "Oh, you're going to make me complete. The next meal, oh, this is going to be it. The next high, the next movie, the next TV series, the next book, the next, right? This constant chase of trying to fulfill this deep, ravenous hole of dissatisfaction and wounds. And just looking into the world of form. Where is the answer now? And then we find some temporary answer, but it's never permanent. And that's because the only permanent answer of satisfaction, ironically, cannot be found in the world of form. Not in physical form, not in the sub-physical, right? The mental, emotional, not there either. It can only be found in being, in your true essence, which is a good thing, because if it was somewhere else, I don't know, it would be a problem. You find your ultimate source of satisfaction in cookies. That's not going to be good for the body. You're just eating too many cookies. But fortunately, it's in the formless space where you can't have too much of it. Other than, well, you can actually. It's not really a problem, but if you're so much in being that you're not able to do a lot, then, you can't work, you can't pay your bills. It has its own challenges. But, at that point, I wouldn't even say it's a problem, because you're in a blissful, peaceful state, and life will take care of you for the most part anyway. Or you die, and that's okay too. But yeah, so this is one of the reasons why, doing seated meditation practice, to ensure that we really enjoy just being and practicing that little moments throughout the day, and then inviting it into every day, all day. And that's the fully integrated state. That's the complete state of liberation or freedom that every spiritual seeker is ultimately seeking. And again, seeking is a tricky thing. It's valuable to some degree, but then it becomes the obstacle itself, because it says, oh, some future moment when I'm finally enlightened, when I finally have enough practice to be able to quiet the mind, or to not be reactive, or to enjoy being still, then life will be good, finally. And that's a trap too, because that's saying future. In the future, I will feel better. In the future, I will be free. And it's no. I mean, there can be some truth to that, but much more important is to find it right now. Can you find the peace, the freedom right now? As far as how long you'll be able to sustain it, secondary. Just come back to, can you feel the enjoyment right now of being? And if you can, great. Then you just enjoy and take it with you and learn where you lose it. And if not, then this needs to be your priority of focus. And there'll be plenty of questions to invite for the next Q&A then, if you don't know how. Ask. Granted, I mean, I feel like I go over this, but maybe direct specific questions on how would be helpful. So okay, this is all. Thank you. I hope you can hear the sounds of present moment. And until next time.